Juujika no Rokunin is the revenge horror series that everyone and their mother warns you about. It's infamous for being extremely gory, unapologetically edgy, and just straight up disturbing. We've been talking about this series for over a whole year now, but with the manga finally finished, it is time to cover the entire story in one complete video. If you've already seen the previous parts, feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp on screen. But how did Juujika no Rokunin earn a reputation as both the best and the worst revenge horror manga of all time? Well, let's just get straight into the video. This world is a muddied one. However, there are two things that are clear to me. There are good and there are evil. Uruma-shun, a 12-year-old boy, is brutally bullied by 5 classmates, led by the sadistic Shigoku Kyo, who views Uruma as a mere test subject. After the bullies torment Uruma by killing his cat, Shigoku reveals his twisted goal: to drive Uruma to suicide. 1 month after Uruma moves away, Shigoku causes a fatal car accident that kills Uruma's parents and leaves his brother in a coma. Uruma is taken in by his estranged grandfather, a World War II veteran, who offers to train him in the art of revenge. 4 years later, Uruma, hardened and fueled by vengeance, prepares to murder all of his past bullies. This is the beginning of the revenge horror series Juujika no Rokunin, or 6 People on Crosses. I've covered series with multiple scenes of gore, sexual violence, and torture before, but all of those series don't compare to the amount of brutality that this manga brings to the table. As a warning, this series talks a lot about sexual violence, animal cruelty, and some of the most gory visuals that I've ever seen. So if you guys are easily discouraged by that, then this isn't the series for you. Azuma Chizuru, a high school student, finds herself drawn to Uruma, an unlikely crush due to his scrawny, bullied appearance. Despite her friend's shock, she begins helping him with school chores, growing closer and learning about his torment, though Uruma brushes off her concerns. She wants to tell the teachers, but Uruma gives her a dark glare and tells her that it's fine. One evening, Azuma is walking home when she sees Uruma walking the same way. However, she's kidnapped by a pervert, but Uruma intervenes, saving her and leaving her shaken yet grateful. Uzuma tells her not to speak of this to anybody, but unbeknownst to her, this event marks a turning point for Uruma, his first kill, proving to his grandfather that he's ready to take revenge on his tormentors. Starting with Senkoji Katsumi. There is a rule that he has to follow though. Let those who have changed go. People need a chance to change and be reborn. And 4 years is a long time, so the possibility is high. However, if nothing has changed, then that isn't a person, and they should be killed. Senkoji and Uruma used to be friends back in elementary, until he joined Shigoku's group. But Senkoji, out of the blue, asks to hang out. Uruma watches for signs of redemption, but still keeps his guard up. At school, Uruma sees Kuga and Senkoji talking about how Senkoji has been hanging out with Uruma. Senkoji tells him that he has some regrets. The same day as they're walking home, Uruma sees him save a kitten, which makes him reconsider. However, it's a trap. Azuma grabs him from behind and Senkoji knocks him out. Uruma wakes up bound alongside a terrified Azumi, who's being blackmailed into helping Senkoji. Senkoji reveals that the thing that he regrets the most is not killing Uruma. With Uruma immobilized by a Torinawa knot and explosives set up around the room, Senkoji beats and tortures him, using a nail gun in a twisted display of power. But Uruma stays eerily calm, recognizing Senkoji's fear of real violence. He's always hidden behind a tool and toys to cause pain. Senkoji begins to strangle him, but in a sudden turn, Uruma escapes his restraints, and he shows him how to truly choke somebody out. Senkoji wakes up with chains holding him up and Uruma preparing to deliver a brutal punishment. The room is suffocatingly hot, and Uruma reveals that he had peeled off his skin, exposing raw nerves. Uruma toys with him, shooting his exposed body with the same airgun that Senkoji once used on him, torturing him as he screams in agony. In his final moments, Senkoji admits his sadistic love for torturing Uruma, but Uruma coldly thanks him for his honesty, before shooting him repeatedly, killing him from shock. In the next room, Uruma warns Azumi to keep quiet, or he'll kill her. The next day, his grandfather erases all traces of the crime, and Senkoji is reported missing. With only 4 bullies left, Uruma visits his brother, vowing to finish his mission. The chapter ends with Officer Ota and Sergeant Anzai taking on the missing person case, but Anzai recognizes Senkoji's name. He was one of the boys involved in the Uruma case 4 years ago. The story kicks off in a grimy karaoke bar packed with delinquent teens, all under the thumb of Yushiro Yuga. A girl approaches him nervously, saying that she's done working for him and thanks him for the job. Yushiro begins dragging her outside and punishing her for even thinking that she could quit. After forcing her compliance, he gets a message from Shigoku to meet up. Meanwhile, detectives Anzai and Ota knocks on Yuruma's door. He assumes they're there about the case from 4 years ago, but is caught off guard when Anzai asks about the disappearance of Senkoji. Anzai then hits Uruma with a heavy question. If someone killed your parents and left your brother in a vegetative state, what would you do? Uruma's cold reply was, I'd kill them. Both officers are shocked by his bluntness, but the tension breaks when Uruma's grandfather intervenes. The detectives leave, but not without some unease. Elsewhere, Yushiro meets up with the remaining bullies. They're getting paranoid about Senkoji's disappearance, and they think that Uruma may have something to do with it, but the past is catching up to them, and Shigoku can sense it, thinking Uruma killed Senkoji. Days later, Yushiro introduces a new girl, Azuma, into his prostitution ring. Meanwhile, Uruma digs into Yushiro's background at his school and learns about a missing girlfriend, with classmates saying that Yushiro hasn't been the same since her disappearance. At the bar, Azuma's friends rope her into working at the prostitution ring. As she's changing into her uniform, a boy tries to assault her, but Yushiro steps in, beats the guy senseless, and coldly reminds him that he has to pay for merchandise. Yushiro then heads back to his apartment, where his missing girlfriend Karen is chained up. She's been completely broken by all of the years of abuse. Azuma accidentally witnesses the horror and barely escapes. The next day, she tells Yushiro she wants out, but he corners her, showing her a picture of Karen and pulling out a knife. But before he can do anything, someone interrupts them with a job for Azuma. Yushiro lets her go, but warns her to come straight back. Azuma heads to a hotel room to meet a client, only to find Uruma there instead. She freaks out but is also kinda excited. Uruma is there for answers about Yushiro. Flashbacks reveal that Yushiro had once assaulted Uruma as well. In the present, Azuma confesses that she likes him, but he tells her that he can't get involved. He has to kill 4 more people first. She's unfazed and offers to help him instead. But what neither of them know is that Yushiro has been listening to their conversation through a microphone planted in Azuma's purse. Enraged, he gathers his gang to lock down the bar and hires a notorious thug named Gano to take care of Azuma. Gano, a violent psychopath since childhood, heads to the hotel room where Azuma is waiting for Uruma. When Gano shows up instead, Azuma tries to escape, but he corners her in the bathroom. Just as things seem hopeless, Uruma, disguised as Biker Man, bursts in. A brutal fight breaks out, but Gano's sheer strength overwhelms him. In a last-ditch effort, Uruma uses a move that his grandfather taught him, targeting Gano's shoulder joints and finally taking him down. Uruma is about to leave when Azuma leans in and kisses him, leaving him stunned. He then tells Azuma to call the police, and when the detectives arrive, Azuma covers for Uruma by claiming that she was saved by Biker Man. Gano backs up her story but name drops Yushiro's name, which immediately raises Anzai's suspicion. Back at the bar, Yushiro senses something off. He gets a call that the building is on fire and his guards have been taken down. As the flames spread, Uruma appears. Yushiro charges at him with a knife, but Uruma quickly takes him down. When he wakes up, he's blindfolded and tied up to a chair. He pulls out the Pear of Anguish, a medieval torture device that opens up these blades like a flower, and instead of using it in a traditional way, he humiliates him by inserting it up his bum. As Yushiro screams in pain, Uruma flips on the lights, revealing Karen standing there, broken but alive. Karen slowly walks up to Yushiro holding a smaller version of the Pear of Anguish. She asks him if he ever really loved her. Yushiro quickly denies it, calling her nothing but a meat toy to him. And Karen, in her anguish, tortures him by putting the device in his you-know-what. As his privates bleed out, Karen turns the device on herself. We get a flashback to how Karen and Yushiro met. Karen went to give her copy of the classwork to him, but he asks if she's scared of him, and she responds that people aren't always who they seem to be. And like that, he instantly fell in love. But in his dying moments, Yushiro cries out for Karen, but Uruma shuts him up with a kick to the head, reminding him that he doesn't deserve to feel anything. Yushiro's final words are, "Uruma, I'm sorry." The next day, Uruma buries Karen and learns how to dissolve a body in acid. He leaves Karen's suicide note with her parents, but as he walks away, there is someone watching him from the shadows. The story picks up with Motoka Hiro caught abusing a little kid, only to be stopped by Shigoku and Kuoga. Furious and unhinged, Motoka argues that Uruma needs to be killed, but Shigoku holds back, preferring to wait and watch how things play out. Motoka, enraged, finds another random kid and kills him by forcing a bottle of detergent down his throat, declaring that he will be the one to kill Uruma. At school, Uruma receives a mysterious letter, which Azuma assumes is from a secret admirer. The note leads him to meet Shirakawa Kaname, who saw him delivering Karen's suicide note. She assumes he's looking for Karen, but Uruma denies it. Kaname's twin brother, Jun, also shows up, clearly trying to push the two together, much to Azuma's annoyance. The next day, their class starts preparing for a school festival, choosing to perform Romeo and Juliet. By random draw, Uruma and Kaname are selected to be part of the committee and to play the lead roles of Romeo and Juliet. As they practice, things get awkward, especially during the kissing scenes, but Kaname makes her feelings clear. She's serious about liking him. Kaname reveals that she was also bullied back in elementary school by the same group that tormented him, until Uruma shifted their focus away from her. She's felt guilty ever since, and this guilt has shaped her feelings for him. Before they leave, she wants to know how Uruma feels by the end of the festival. Meanwhile, Motoka confides in Shigoku about his plans to kill Uruma, and Shigoku is intrigued, so the plan is set for the day of the school festival. On the last night of the rehearsals, Uruma meets up with Azuma and the Shirakawa twins at the park. For the first time in ages, Uruma feels like he's experiencing something close to normal, fun even, but that's short-lived as he prepares to kill Motoka the day of the festival. The festival arrives and everything is ready for the play, but a suspicious package of drinks is delivered to the class, and Kaname is missing. Motoka has laced the drinks to make the students sick, intending to slip in and then kill Uruma while the chaos unfolds. As he brags about his plan, Kaname overhears him. Before the drinks are served, a few students notice something's off, and Uruma finds a note in the package, recognizing Motoka's handwriting. He bolts from the classroom, desperately searching for Kaname. Behind the gym, he finds her, beaten, bloodied, and her dress torn. Jun takes her home, but he asks Uruma what happened. However, Uruma is at a loss for words. At home, Motoka revels in his twisted victory, fantasizing about Kaname, when his mother slides him a letter from Uruma, challenging him to a fight. Motoka sneaks to the meeting spot, but Uruma is ready for him. In a flashback, we see Motoka as a child, once eager and innocent, building a robot named Superbane at Shigoku's request. But after working tirelessly, Shigoku destroyed it, teaching Motoka that monsters enjoy destroying what humans work hard to build, and that it's really fun to be a monster. From then on, Shigoku becomes Motoka's god. Motoka then wakes up to find himself tied up, hands and feet bound, with his thumbs restrained. Uruma questions why he hurt Kaname, but Motoka, deranged, screams that she's his now. In response, Uruma slowly tightens the screws on the device, crushing Motoka's thumbs, causing him to scream in agony. But Uruma remains cold, taunting him. You still don't realize what's most important because you're not a person. As Uruma leaves, Motoka escapes his restraints, thinking that he's won, only to collapse, noticing that his toes have been silently broken. Uruma comes back and mocks him, dragging him back to the torture device with a sinister twist. As he turns the handle, Motoka's body begins to stretch, his joints tearing apart. Uruma splashes water on his face, mocking him, saying that they're exorcising the demon inside him. Motoka, in his final moments, pleads for Shigoku, but Uruma tells him that Shigoku doesn't care about him, or so it seems. Suddenly, Uruma is struck from behind by none other than Shigoku. Overjoyed, Motoka watches as Shigoku turns the handle, ripping his arms apart. It's revealed that Shigoku is actually Uruma's grandfather, disguised all along. Motoka has been hallucinating, the water Uruma splashed on him laced with a powerful drug. The real Shigoku never cared. The next day, Motoka is reported missing, and Kaname takes a break from school to recover from her lung disease. After school, Uruma sneaks to Kaname's house, knocking on her window and apologizing for what she went through, taking responsibility for her suffering. He reveals to her that he killed Motoka, and then tells her at the end to be strong, I want you to live. The chapter ends with now only 2 bullies left, and Kuga is ready to be the one to kill Uruma. This series, while being a torture fest, is actually a really fun and brutal read. The art is so good and all of the characters shown are really fun to follow. The torture is only really good because the story between the distraught victim and the evil bullies is a concept that makes us root for a murder / anti-hero type character. We root for these murderers because we know that the evil bullies are 10 times worse than him, and we want to see them get the justice that they deserve. There are scenes in this series that I literally can't even show on YouTube because it is just too disturbing. Like the entire scene between Motoka and Kaname, and an alley scene with Gano. I've said multiple times that I really don't like sexual violence or torture if it doesn't impact the story or just uses it for shock factor. However, every scene that has these cruel acts serve a purpose. Even with Uruma getting violated, something that I thought was just forced and unnecessary actually plays a big part in why Uruma feels super uncomfortable in romantic situations. The police officers are also pretty dumb in my opinion. After the second bully goes missing and right after the conversation with Uruma is finished, I think it was a little too obvious that Uruma is a part of the whole operation, but the police don't really act on it. There's no search squad or questionings or anything really, when I think it's super obvious that he has to be a part of it, you know what I mean? Uruma is back in school as Chizuru daydreams about him. When Uruma tries to leave the classroom, he is blocked by Kuga Daichi, who whispers in his ear, "Looks like it's my turn next." Kuga Daichi used to beat up Uruma every single day as a kid until he cried bloody tears. Kuga has won every single judo award since elementary school. His sheer power and violence alone brings those around him to his knees. In his first year of high school, he took over the judo club and injured everyone there. Uruma walks home to find his house on fire. He tries to run in to save his grandfather, but the flames rage uncontrollably. His grandfather jumps out of a window with his left arm severely burnt, and he collapses on the ground. While his grandfather is in the hospital, Sergeant Anzai and his partner, Asako, visit them. Anzai informs Uruma that the police suspect arson. With their house completely burned down and his grandfather hospitalized, Uruma is set to stay at Asako's house. The next morning at school, gym class holds a judo session. Uruma pairs up with Kurosawa, a classmate there. While practicing throws, Uruma pretends that he doesn't have the strength to throw Kurosawa. When it's Kurosawa's turn, Uruma accidentally makes him trip and fall. After class, Kurosawa asks to talk to him in an alley, where he confesses that he was the one who set Uruma's house on fire. Uruma demands to know why, and Kurosawa reveals that Kuga forced him to do it, threatening to take his childhood friend hostage otherwise. Kuga, who has dominated the judo club, has sent the male members to the hospital and then violated all of the female members. One day, Kuga organizes a game of finger casino with some club members and Kurosawa. When one of the boys loses, Kuga breaks his fingers. Kurosawa's childhood friend, Anna, barges in and starts bad-mouthing Kuga. Kurosawa thought Kuga would kill her, but instead, Kuga just takes it and laughs. Afterward, Kuga forced Kurosawa to burn Uruma's house. Kurosawa begged Uruma for help, believing that he is strong enough to defeat him. Uruma asks for a picture of Anna, which Kurosawa provides. Uruma then follows Anna around the city, trying to figure out why Kuga would even target her and why he hasn't even acted further. He eventually follows her home and discovers through a picture frame that Anna and Shigoku are cousins. Uruma decides to use this to his advantage, but he still needs a lot more information. So, he dresses up as a woman to talk to her. Anna gets emotional when Uruma tells her about Kuga's hazing and promises to help him change. She reveals that Kuga wasn't always like this. In a flashback, we see a young Kuga giving Anna a lollipop, saying that she looks a lot like Shigoku. In the present, Anna abruptly runs off and Uruma sees her holding onto Kuga's arm. Uruma runs into Kurosawa, silencing him before they're spotted by Anna and Kuga. Anna tells Kurosawa that she's dating Kuga, breaking Kurosawa's heart. Kurosawa lies, claiming that he and Uruma are dating, leading to a very awkward double date. Kurosawa eventually just runs off. After the date, Uruma resolves to using Anna to murder Kuga. Under a bridge, Anna and Kuga argue, and it suddenly turns violent. Kuga starts beating on her and lifts her skirt to commit an unspeakable act, but ultimately lets her go. At school, Uruma notices Kaname's return before visiting his grandfather in the hospital, preparing himself to kill Kuga. The next day, a girl heading to morning practice finds Kuga naked with unconscious women on the floor. Kuga assaults her as her boyfriend waits outside with Kurosawa, cursing at Kuga. When Kuga exits, he beats up Kurosawa, breaking his arm. Later, Kuga meets with Shigoku and asks why he hasn't killed Uruma yet. Kuga expresses joy as the prospect graphically describing how he'll do it. Suddenly, Kuga receives a message. "I'm holding your special person hostage," accompanied by a photo of Anna in restraints. In the woods, Uruma keeps Anna tied up in a truck, apologizing and promising that this won't take long. We flash back to Uruma's childhood where he trained with his grandfather to throw big objects. After failing over and over again, he finally succeeded in uprooting a tree. In the present, Kuga finds a rundown cabin in the woods, where Uruma is in the center, kneeling down. Kuga laughs, threatening to kill both him and his brother. Uruma then challenges him to a judo match, vowing to kill him. Kuga changes into his judo uniform and the fight begins. Kuga initially dominates, throwing Uruma and slamming him to the ground, but Uruma recalls his training, counters Kuga's moves, and then throws him, disfiguring his face. Enraged, Uruma beats Kuga senselessly, breaking his arm. Uruma declares that it's time to end things. He ties Kuga over a barrel filled with mantis shrimp, known for their powerful strikes, enough to break nails and fingers. Uruma lights a flame under the barrel, causing the water to boil. As the shrimp begins attacking Kuga, Uruma steps out. While he's out, the water begins boiling Kuga's skin and the shrimps begin eating his body. Uruma is outside preparing for the aftermath when he hears a crash inside the shed. He charges in to see that Kuga escaped. He escaped with the help of Anna, who apologizes as she removes the shrimp from his body. She believes that there is still good in him and wants to start all over. Kuga, in his delirium, mistakes Anna for Shigoku and then spears her. In a flashback, young Kuga tried to violate Shigoku but was stabbed in the cheek with a pencil. In the present, Uruma finds Anna dead, beaten, and violated. Blaming himself, Uruma is ambushed by Kuga, who ties him up and then threatens to kill and spear Shigoku. Uruma escapes, grabbing a brick and then killing Kuga by repeatedly smashing his head till his whole body is covered in Kuga's blood. Sergeant Anzai searches the woods for Uruma, recalling his childhood and emphasizing with Uruma's dark emotions. He once was also bullied by a couple of kids, and even had those dark thoughts about killing them. So he understands what Uruma is coming to, but he just hopes that he doesn't give in to his dark emotions. However, he finds Uruma bloodied over Kuga's corpse and offers him a chance to start over. Instead, Uruma strangles him, saying, "Not yet. There's still one more person I need to kill." In the aftermath, Uruma dissolves Kuga, Anna's, and Anzai's body in acid and then burns their clothes. Back at Asako's apartment, she asks about Anzai. Uruma lies about not knowing where he is, guilt weighing heavily on him. At school, missing posters of Kuga and Anna are displayed. Kurosawa confronts Uruma, who denies everything, causing Kurosawa to freak out, knowing that he's lying. Uruma then visits his grandfather, keeping the secret about Anzai and Anna to himself. Feeling hopeless, he's approached by Kaname, who takes him to a theme park. After a long day of rides and games, she asks him to erase her traumatic memories. So they spend the night together, but Uruma's disturbed expression remains. After leaving, he prepares for his final task, killing Shigoku. Kaname's brother Jun witnesses her and Uruma entering a hotel together. Kaname and Jun were inseparable until Uruma entered the picture. One day, Jun tried asking Kaname about Uruma, and she brushed it off, saying that it was nothing. Jun persisted, which creeped Kaname out. This led to Jun developing a grudge towards Uruma. Around this time, Jun was approached by Shigoku Kyo. Uruma's grandfather is recovering well, and Uruma goes to school to break things off with both Kaname and Chizuru, saying that it is for the best. Meanwhile, Anzai's partner, Asako, requests the GPS location data from Anzai's cell phone company to determine where he was before he disappeared. The file reveals the last place Anzai was tracking Uruma. Shigoku Kyo, the leader of the bully group, is extremely smart, athletic, and pure evil. His talents know no bounds. Uruma attempts to follow Shigoku but quickly loses him. Shigoku enters a meeting room filled with members of a fraternity. After the meeting, Shigoku calls out to 4 researchers and introduces them to Shirakawa Jun, telling them to teach him many things. At the hospital, Uruma's brother, Kakeru, wakes up from his 4-year coma. Uruma rushes to the hospital and barges into the room. The nurse reassures him that Kakeru is just sleeping and should recover nicely. Relieved, Uruma notices someone else in the room, Shigoku, who is hiding. Uruma demands to know why Shigoku is there, and he responds that his little human experiment made great progress, especially with killing those 4 boys. Uruma replies that all that's left is him. Shigoku tries to choke him, but Uruma grabs hold of his arm. Shigoku smirks, leaving the room and saying that he's looking forward to having fun with him later. In the hallway, Shigoku walks past Uruma's grandfather, who enters the room to find Uruma in complete shock. The nurse informs them that Kakeru's condition is fine, and that they only just need to wait for him to speak again. Uruma takes Kakeru on a walk in his wheelchair outside the hospital. As they talk, Kakeru unexpectedly speaks, saying, "Do you want me to tell you that everything's okay?" Shocked, Uruma listens as Kakeru asks if he's okay. Uruma replies that he's not sad at all. Kakeru points at a car similar to their family's car, causing Kakeru to remember his parents' death. Overcome with emotion, Uruma hugs Kakeru and vows to kill Shigoku. During their last lap around the hospital grounds, they pass Shigoku's 4 researchers, who are plotting. Asako, stressed about the investigation, scrolls through a dating app and matches with somebody. She goes out on a seemingly great date until the man mentions the Revolution Club, run by Shigoku. Afterward, Asako recalls that Shigoku was one of Uruma's bullies. She begins to wonder what connection the Revolution Club could have to Anzai's case. In the club, a restrained member recalls joining to steal funds. One researcher, Miguel, mocks the man and explains that he's there to be rehabilitated into a soldier. When the man freaks out, Miguel and another researcher, Nogi, beat him up. A third researcher, Ando, enters and begins the rehabilitation, placing a bag over the man's head and waterboarding him repeatedly until he stops moving. Though it seems that the man has died, he actually revives, brainwashed into loving the Revolution Club. Ando is heading out to go meet up with Uruma. At home, Uruma searches for his grandfather but finds a spot of blood on the floor. He rushes to the hospital to find Kakeru missing. The blanket on Kakeru's bed is stained with blood, hiding a dead cat underneath. As Uruma panics, a researcher named Momoki approaches him, saying that Shigoku is waiting for him. She takes him to his old elementary school. Outside, the other researchers welcome him, and he finds Shigoku waiting inside. Shigoku explains that Uruma was an experiment to create someone who could be manipulated into the experiment failed though, so now it's time for cleanup. A spotlight reveals Kakeru tied to a chair. Uruma rushes towards him but Miguel stops him, and Nogi holds a knife to Kakeru's neck. Momoki orders Uruma to sit down, introducing the researchers as members of the Revolution Club. Shigoku announces a game. Uruma will play rock paper scissors against Jun. If Uruma wins 3 times, Kakeru will be freed. If he loses, Kakeru would die. Jun accuses Uruma of ruining Kaname, believing that he violated her. Shigoku starts the game, and Jun throws scissors while Uruma freezes, losing by default. Ando grabs a chainsaw and announces that every time he loses, he will bring Kakeru closer to death, with one part of his leg being severed off per loss. Ando cuts off one of Kakeru's leg as Uruma screams in agony. Kakeru, unable to feel pain, is confused, not knowing what's going on. Jun, horrified, begs them to stop and apologizes to Uruma. Ando drags Jun to a chair for the second round though. Uruma wins this time, but Jun doesn't get any punishment. So he makes a plan to not throw out anything, so he lets Uruma win. The third round begins and Uruma takes another win, with Jun not having any punishment again. Shigoku then receives a call and learns that they died after the second round. Momoki enters with a cart carrying Kaname's dismembered corpse. Jun breaks down holding her body as Jun charges at Shigoku but is stopped by Ando. Now since Kaname died, Jun will play for his own life. Uruma loses the next round. In a desperate act, he stabs Miguel in the eye but Miguel is unfazed, reiterating his loyalty to Shigoku. Ando attempts to cut off Kakeru's other leg, but Uruma's grandfather arrives, knocking him out and Nogi. Grandpa, who had been chained up, severed his own leg to save his own grandkids. Miguel takes Uruma hostage, but Grandpa disables him by ripping off a vein from his neck. Miguel collapses, unable to move, blood spurting out of his neck. Uruma and his grandfather stand together to protect Kakeru. Meanwhile, Asako searches the woods and finds a shed. She discovers Anzai's voice recorder, which contained his last moments. The recording reveals Uruma admitting that he has one more person to kill. Asako heads to the police station ready to file a report for Uruma, but is called to investigate a disturbance at Uruma's old elementary school. At the school, Momoki takes Kakeru hostage again. Grandpa fights Ando, who holds a chainsaw but is fatally wounded protecting Kakeru. Bleeding out, he tells Uruma that his existence gave his life meaning, and thanks him before dying. As Uruma holds on to his dead body, Shigoku stabs Kakeru in the chest. Nogi mocks Uruma, and in a fit of rage, Uruma rips off Nogi's face and kills him with a final blow to the head. Uruma charges at Shigoku, but Momoki blocks him. He kicks her aside and tries to stab Shigoku, but Ando grabs him. He overpowers Ando and then he slashes Shigoku's eye. Police then arrive at the school, distracting Shigoku and Ando. Shigoku taunts Uruma, promising to see him again as they flee. Asako then bursts in to find Uruma holding the bodies of his grandfather and his brother. She arrests him on suspicion of Anzai's murder. Uruma walks out of the school in handcuffs. This world is a cloudy one, but one thing is clear to me. There are those who are good and those who are evil. Juujika no Rokunin always manages to surprise me. The Kuga situation was both brutal and really disturbing to say the least, but I did really enjoy it. I really like the dynamic of Kuga and Anna, how Anna is trying super hard to change Kuga because she knows how nice he was before. Anna's death was very brutal, and it was very, very sad the way that she went out. If any of you guys are suffering from an abusive relationship, please call the number on the screen. Help is always available for you. Kuga's death was so satisfying just due to how despicable he was, and honestly, I really did love this arc though. Especially the ending where he killed Anzai and then the guilt just consumes him. It was the first time that he has ever killed someone that was innocent, and it eventually would lead to his downfall. Not only that, but Anzai was actively trying to help him because he saw himself in him. So it just added in that extra dread when he did get killed. Shigoku's side of the story was pretty iffy for me. I do like that Shigoku is psychologically torturing Uruma, and I love the school rock paper scissors thing, but I really didn't like the Revolution Club or the new researcher characters. It was just pretty much a bore to read those chapters, and I just wanted to get it over with. However, they did do their purpose in helping with the school event. I was mixed on the way that the grandfather and the brother died. I did like that they did die, and for a good reason, but I didn't like the way it led up to it, if that makes sense. But I like the way that this arc actually ended, and makes me want to keep on reading and see what happens next after his arrest. Would he still be in jail? Would he get a time skip where we see him out of prison, or do we see him escape from prison? I don't know, but a lot of these theories in my head are making me want to continue on reading. News of Yuruma's arrest spreads throughout the city and even reaches the school. Asako has been trying to interrogate him about the school incident, but Uruma remains silent. She asks if he killed Anzai, but he refuses to speak. Eventually, Uruma is sentenced to 5 years in prison for killing the people in the school. Asako investigates his house but finds nothing. Suddenly, Chizuru shows up at Yuruma's house. Asako tries to interrogate her as well, but Chizuru won't break. She says that she believes in Uruma. In prison, Uruma blames himself for the deaths of his brother and grandfather, and he vows to get stronger. We then cut to 5 years later. Chizuru is now in her second year of college and still thinks about Uruma from time to time, wondering what he's doing now. Around campus, there's a rumor going around about a mysterious Twitter account called Juujika-san. Allegedly, if you send them a request, they'll fulfill it. Throughout the day, different boys and men flirt with and hit on Chizuru, including her own manager at work. At her job, Chizuru has a friend and co-worker named Manami. At first, Manami seems normal, but as the shift progresses, she starts acting very strange. By the end of the day, Manami tells Chizuru that she wants to kill her manager. Chizuru is shocked, obviously, but Manami explains that he drugged and raped her. You know this series is bad when I start adding a beer counter, by the way. She tried going to the police, but the drugs got her addicted, and she kept coming back. The manager has apparently done this to multiple women. Manami asks Chizuru to help her kill him, but Chizuru realizes that getting her involved might be a little bit too dangerous. So instead, she decides to text Juujika-san asking if there's a way to kill her manager. The next morning, Chizuru gets a response, directing her to a specific location. Chizuru and Manami arrive and are greeted by a nurse who asks if they have herpes or chlamydia. The nurse, named Kawana, hands Chizuru a clipboard after she says the magic words, "I wanted to see you about an incurable disease." Chizuru fills out the form and is led to an exam room where a man named Kitami welcomes them. They are Juujika-san. Kitami says that they accept the request and that a specialist would take care of the manager. After she leaves, Kitama then goes up to the roof to meet with the specialist, who turns out to be none other than Uruma. Later, Chizuru enters her house and is suddenly tackled to the ground by her own manager. He's been stalking her all day and knows that she's plotting something. Just as he's about to inject her with the drug, the door bursts open and a wire wraps around his neck. Uruma, wearing a mask, enters and begins choking him out. The manager is knocked out and Uruma removes his mask. Kitami appears as well and takes the manager away, leaving Chizuru stunned, wondering if that was really Uruma. The manager wakes up tied to a chair facing both Uruma and Kitami. Uruma gives him 3 minutes to live. The manager asks why they're doing this, and Kitami replies that they want to remove and cure all evil people. With 1 minute left, Kitami asks the manager which girl sent the request. The manager begins listing off a few names, but they're all incorrect. just as he says Manami, Uruma slashes his throat, killing him. As Kawana cleans up the scene, Kitami turns to Uruma and wonders what he was like before the amnesia. Now, I didn't want to pause the reading and talk too much, but the only plotline that I hate other than time travel is amnesia stories. No, not you. I can't even explain why I hate it. I just haven't liked any of the movies or series that deals with amnesia. I think what makes this time a bit more frustrating though is that it's only used to make the series longer. I'll probably repeat it in the conclusion as well, but I think the series isn't supposed to be this long. It's kill all 5 bullies and then Uruma either gets arrested and pay for his crimes or just has a happy-go-lucky ending and that's it. But we just gotta add on more and more things to it just because the author wanted to make this a lot longer, and it's honestly just unnecessary. 2 weeks have passed and Chizuru has a new manager, so everything seems normal again. However, she's still thinking about Uruma. She visits the clinic and asks to see a guy with black hair. Kitami walks out and then warns her not to talk about them, saying that they're more dangerous than she realizes. Suddenly, Uruma enters with lunch and Chizuru immediately recognizes him. She tries to talk to him about everything, but he says that he doesn't even know who she is. He has amnesia. Shocked, Chizuru gives him a piece of paper before leaving. As Uruma reads it, a hidden memory begins to stir up. Meanwhile, Kitami sits in his office, flipping through a notebook filled with information about Uruma and his past crimes. He begins to worry that Uruma's past is coming for him. We flash back to Kitami disposing one of his first victims in a river, when suddenly, Uruma emerges from the water, confused, asking where he is. Kitami panics, realizing that he has been seen and may just have to kill someone who hasn't even sinned. But instead, Uruma tells Kitami that he's doing it wrong. He tells him how to dispose of a body correctly and then passes out. Intrigued, Kitami brings him back and performs emergency surgery. 2 months later, he introduces Uruma to the Juujika plan. It's called Juujika because of the countless cross-shaped scars all over Uruma's body. Back in the present, another patient arrives at the clinic. It's a 17-year-old boy named Teta, and he asks if they can kill someone for him. Teta and his grandfather used to be poor but happy with their lives, until his grandfather began acting strangely. One day, he bought Teta an old PC from a friend for a cheap price of 500,000 yen. Even though he's clearly been scammed, his grandfather just kept on smiling. Over time, he got weirder and weirder, ranting about a self-revolution. His mental state just got worse and worse, and when Teta called out his grandfather's scammer friends, his grandfather struck him, defending them. The next day, a man named Gonda, a leader of the Revolution Club, showed up. Gonda claimed Teta's grandfather owed him a massive debt and then threatened to turn him in unless Teta worked for him. Left with no choice, Teta spent his days serving Gonda. If he even made the smallest mistake, he was beaten. One day, his grandfather tried to fight back, but Gonda killed him with a single punch. Teta doesn't have much money, but he begs Juujika-san to kill Gonda, which Kitami agrees. After a disturbing scene where they force a girl to eat a man's feces, one of the most strangest transitions I've ever written on a script by the way, a van pulls up. Uruma opens the door and knocks Gonda out. Gonda then wakes up hanging upside down, with Uruma standing in front of him, ready to pass judgment. Kitami enters, explaining that Gonda has a twisted obsession with forcing others to eat his own feces. Kitami inserts an enema, while Uruma attaches a tube inside Gonda's butt and a mask to his face. Their plan is to force Gonda to crap himself and then ingest his own feces on repeat until he suffocates. And the plan works. But just before dying, Gonda cries out for Shigoku. The name sparks a blurry memory in Uruma. Desperate, he demands to know who Shigoku is, however, it's too late. He's already dead. We then cut to a newscast. A reporter is about to interview a mysterious man who leads a revolutionary club with over 100,000 members, Shigoku. Uruma begins digging for answers, convinced that Shigoku is tied to his amnesia. Later, Kawana asks Uruma to meet her in front of a train station. Uruma asks what they're doing, but she says that it's a secret. Uruma begins to panic, wondering if this could be a date, and anxiously thinks about what it might mean. I do love seeing Uruma act all comedic and different just because he has amnesia, even right after seeing probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Just before Kawana leaves, she gives a knowing look towards Kitami. Uruma waits for 3 hours outside the train station, but when Kawana doesn't show up, he decides to visit her house just in case. He heads to her apartment and finds the door wide open. Cautiously, he steps inside, thinking that there might be an intruder. Suddenly, he hears a loud noise and he rushes in, only to find Kawana knocked out on the ground, giving us one of the best shocked faces of all time. After recovering, Kawana gets ready, and then they head out towards what she calls somewhere fun. Unbeknownst to them, someone is following. Kawana takes Uruma shopping, and the mysterious man continues to tail them. Uruma quickly catches on and then swiftly takes the man out. It turns out that the man is Kawana's older brother. He was just checking up on her after seeing her leave with a guy. He leaves peacefully, and that moment gives Uruma a feeling of brotherly nostalgia. Eventually, they arrive at a restaurant where Kitami is there waiting for them. It's a surprise birthday celebration for Uruma. They don't actually know his actual birthday, but they felt that the day was special and wanted to celebrate. They give him a cross necklace, and for the first time in a long while, they share their first moments as a family. Later that night, Chizuru gets a call from Uruma. He asks her if she knows anything about Shigoku. Chizuru doesn't recognize the name, but she tells him that she has something to show him. The next day, she takes him to his old burnt down house. She explains that this used to be his home and that he went to school just 3 yards away. Uruma still can't remember much until he spots a shed nearby. He walks towards it, goes inside, and he finds his grandfather's rifle. The moment he picks it up, his memories come flooding back, including his original plan to kill Shigoku. Uruma wakes up at the clinic after passing out at his old shed. He tells the others everything that he remembers, but he still doesn't know how he lost his memories in the first place. Kawana wants to take action, but Uruma doesn't want anyone to get involved. However, Kitami says that they're already involved, and now they all have to carry the burden together. At the Revolutionary Club, a boy hangs himself in an attempt to gain Shigoku's approval. However, Shigoku finds it boring. Suddenly, one of the members hands Shigoku a photo of Uruma. Shigoku smiles, proclaiming he's returned to me. Later, Uruma visits his family's grave to pray. While there, a man gives him a letter from his grandfather. The letter says he buried something special for Uruma to use in his revenge. Uruma digs it up and finds a special knife meant as a good luck charm. That night, the group decides who to target first: the man who killed Uruma's grandfather, Ando Midori. We cut to an award ceremony where Anzai's widow, Mizuki, is being honored for a recent arrest. Before his death, Anzai had promised to take her on a honeymoon, but he died during the Uruma case. Although Uruma was never confirmed to be Anzai's killer, Mizuki says that if she ever met him, she just has to kill him herself. The next day, Mizuki and Asako are assigned a new case, investigating the mysterious Juujika Twitter account and its possible connection to recent disappearance. We then cut to a flashback of Kitami. As a child, he loved superheroes and took it upon himself to punish kids who did anything bad. However, it often got him in trouble. He later decided to become a doctor so he could become a hero in a more meaningful way. However, after accidentally killing a patient during surgery, he went to apologize to the widow. To his surprise, she thanked him. The patient had been very abusive and she felt free from him. That moment shifted Kitami's worldview. He realized that sometimes killing could save lives. But when he began doing it, it felt empty. He lacked purpose. That changed when Uruma told him his story. For the first time ever, he felt that he had a reason to be a hero. The next day, Uruma and Kawana go undercover at a revolutionary ceremony to gather intel, specifically on the 5 main leaders. During the event, the members are told to split into pairs for a roleplay exercise. Uruma and Kawana get separated, and Uruma ends up paired with a sleeping girl named Suzuyama Reo. The game is simple. One person has a ball, and the other has to persuade them to give it up, and no violence is allowed. Reo gives a weak argument at first, but tries again, this time claiming that she wants to avenge her sister's murder. The statement shocks Uruma, and she successfully takes the ball. The roleplay ends, and afterwards, a woman approaches Uruma and hands him a pamphlet for the club's upcoming training camp, where Ando is pictured. Uruma and Kawana head to the training camp, which is located on a private island. Sadly, Kitami wasn't able to go because he didn't attend any lectures. The same people from the sermon are on the boat, including Reo, who's excited to see someone that she recognizes. She doesn't know Yuruma's real name, so he gives her his first name, Shun. Waiting for them is Ando, seen killing a group of puppies. The club members arrive at the island and are forced to surrender their luggage and cell phones, then are guided to their dorms. Once settled in, they head to the meeting hall where they're introduced to an instructor named Nakamura. He hypes up the crowd and introduces Ando and a mysterious associate. Yuruma vows to kill Ando, but first he must find a way to get close. The training camp operates like a summer camp, but with a bunch of harsh rules. Members must prove themselves through labor. Their first task is to plow the garden. Yuruma and Kawana are assigned to a team with 4 other members, 2 randoms, a deranged man named Tamiya, and a bikini model named Hanaoka, who most of the boys are already falling for, except for Yuruma. Yuruma is then picked as team leader, which makes Tamiya extremely jealous. As they work, the team compliments Yuruma's strength, and Hanaoka takes notice, giving him a wink, which infuriates Tamiya even further. That night, Yuruma lies awake, wondering what Hanaoka's wink meant and whether he should be concerned. Meanwhile, in another dorm, Tamiya is angrily scribbling on his desk, ranting about Yuruma. On the 3rd morning, Yuruma and Kawana eat breakfast and discuss Ando's possible location. They're on the west side of the island, so Yuruma suspects Ando might be on the east side. Escaping won't be easy. Yuruma has counted over 72 surveillance cameras across the camp. As they continue eating with Reo, a fight breaks out between an angry member and Nakamura. The member wants to leave, saying that he has an important meeting the next day, but Nakamura declares that no one leaves until they undergone self-revolution. That night, that member tries to sneak off into the woods, and the next morning, his body is found buried in the ground, with Nakamura openly admitting to killing him. Hanaoka grows worried, realizing that every member of her team, including Yuruma, is useless to her survival. Nakamura announces a new test. Each team must carry a large bundle of straws up a mountain to an incineration site. The team that fails must choose the member who contributed the least, who would then suffer the same fate as Nakamura's last victim. As the teams begin carrying the straws, Hanaoka struggles to keep up and starts falling behind. She begins to lose hope, flashing back to how her modeling career devolved into sex work and how she'd given up on life a long time ago. But Yuruma steps in to help her carry the straw, and in that moment, Hanaoka falls for him. Later that night, Nakamura tells Ando's right-hand man, Kurusu, that one person did more than double the amount of work than everyone else, Yuruma. Now intrigued, Kurusu wants to meet him. The next day, he calls Yuruma in for a chat. They discuss how Yuruma, known at the camp as Yoshida, isn't on any official record and only attended one lecture before fully embracing the club's teachings. Yuruma lies through his teeth, claiming that he's deeply impressed by the philosophy. This answer seems to satisfy Kurusu, and he lets him go. That night, Reo speaks to Yuruma through the dorm wall, saying that she can't sleep. Yuruma asks her if she wants any steak, and she laughs at him. He then invites her to a steakhouse once they return home, and Reo promises to go with him. Reo then gets tired and she quietly tells him goodnight, Yuruma-san. The next day, Reo is gone without a trace. We learn more about Kurusu. He's a prolific serial killer with no criminal record and has known Ando since elementary school. His victims are all women, and he takes their hands and then beats it to them afterward. One night, someone knocks on Yuruma's door. It's Ando, who reveals that he knows Yuruma's true identity. 3 men enter to subdue him, but Yuruma kills 2 and is eventually knocked out by Ando. The next morning, Nakamura announces to the camp that Yuruma tried to escape and will be executed in 3 days. Hanaoka, devastated, begs Kawana to help her rescue Yuruma. Meanwhile, Yuruma is being tortured in a prison cell by Ando, who slices off pieces of his flesh in the same pattern he once used on Yuruma's dead brother. At the cafeteria, the camp members are rewarded with slices of cake. Hanaoka and Kawana are too upset to eat, but Tamiya steals theirs and grows increasingly deranged. Kawana suspects something is in the cake, altering their behavior. Suddenly, the cake eaters turn violent, attacking and raping the ones who didn't eat any. Kawana and Hanaoka manage to escape, but Tamiya pursues them. Hanaoka distracts him while Kawana knocks him out with a wooden stick. They run, but Nakamura follows. While they enter a restricted area, he stops the chase. The girls hide in a field of poppy plants used to make opium, knowing now that opium was used in the cake. A siren blares and an announcement goes out about intruders in the sanctuary. Guards armed with AKs rush towards their location, and they barely escape, and they spot Kurusu, who casually informs the guards that Ando is torturing Uruma in the pain room. Determined, the girls set out to find it, but they're spotted by more guards and are nearly killed until an unseen shooter kills the guards. As the girls leave, the shooter is revealed to be Reo, who has come for revenge against Kurusu. The girls are reunited with someone from their old group named Matsumo. He claims that he was retrieving his luggage and knows where everyone's belongings are. He leads them to the hidden shed and they recover their phones. However, there's no signal. Kawana finds Yuruma's grandfather's knife in his bag. Suddenly, Matsumo locks the shed and another boy emerges holding a weapon. Matsumo and the other boy attempt to scare the girls, but Kawana slashes one in the face and then threatens the other one. They escape and they find Ando outside the pain room, his hands covered in blood. Kawana spots the entrance but fears that there's no other way inside. She then breaks down crying until a shadowy figure appears who turns out to be Kitami, who rolled all the way from the mainland. After hearing the situation, Kitami calmly suggests a solution: to make their own entrance. He then smashes a hole in the wall and finds a brutally beaten Uruma hanging from the ceiling. They get him down and Uruma manages to stand on his own. Kitami and Kawana try to take him back to the boat, but he refuses. He still hasn't killed Ando yet. Kawana cries out to him, but he's too focused on revenge. She then hands him the knife and he's off. Inside, Ando opens a package when Uruma enters. Ando pulls out a chainsaw and Uruma charges, though he starts coughing up blood. Ando mocks his weakness, revs the chainsaw, and their fight begins. Uruma flash steps and then manages to stab Ando in the eye. Then out of nowhere, the door bursts open and Kurusu is pinned down by Reo. She screams that he took everything away from her. Then she looks over at Uruma and they begin bonding over their desire to torture their victims. Reo says that seeing Uruma in the news sparked her own journey for vengeance. Kitami builds a torture device for both Ando and Kurusu. Kurusu then wakes up and sees Reo and calls her beautiful. Cutting to a flashback, Reo's parents died in a car accident and she was sent to an orphanage where she met Ryo. The two became like sisters, and one day, Kurusu adopted them, but under a different name. At first he seemed kind. They traveled, watched movies, played video games together, but after a year, Reo developed romantic feelings for him. She confessed them, but he told her to grow up and become more beautiful. Later, Kurusu called Ryo beautiful. Reo became extremely jealous and then told her that they weren't family. That night she begins packing her bags and she believes to hear both of them sleeping together. Kurusu passed her in the hall saying that she was nothing special. Reo then checked inside Ryo's room and found her bleeding out, missing an arm. At that moment, Reo vowed to take revenge. Back in the present, Reo demands an apology. Kurusu refuses and tries to take poison hidden in his teeth, but doesn't know that Reo swapped it out. She won't let him die so easily. She tightens the crank on the torture device known as the stork, a contraption that forces victims into a painful tripod position, slowly pulling their muscles apart. Kurusu's body begins to shred as Reo demands another apology. He refuses, so she tightens the crank again. Meanwhile, Ando wakes up and he begins mocking Uruma even as his body begins tearing itself apart. He says that Uruma will never surpass him. So, Uruma grabs a pair of scissors and then begins cutting off Ando's fingers. Kurusu tries to manipulate Reo, pretending to feel guilty and confessing his love to her. Reo hugs him, but then calls him a liar. She then snaps his neck, killing him. Ando cries out for him, and then he tries to go into a flashback before Uruma smacks him out of it. Too weak to stab him to death, Uruma instead throws gasoline on his face and then sets him on fire. As the building begins to burn, Reo retrieves Ryo's severed arm from a room filled with hands. The drug-producing plants then go up into flames, and the group escapes the island as it burns behind them. The arc ends with Kitami realizing Uruma is holding something. Uruma clutches a cell phone with one of Ando's fingers, now knowing Shigoku's whereabouts. And that is Juujika no Rokunin. Honestly, I couldn't wait to finish the series. This was so difficult to go through, specifically the time skip part. It was just so boring. I didn't care about the Theta storyline. I didn't care for Yuruma's amnesia. The series just started getting really interesting once Uruma got his memories back and then he started hunting down Shigoku's team. People were saying how messed up and edgy this series was for a very long time, and I didn't expect this to be this gruesome and edgy. I think in just this video, there were like 4 or 5 rape scenes, a couple of suicides, and obviously some of the most messed up and disgusting scenes I've ever seen in any series. And it sucks because this is obviously for one reason, and that is to shock the audience. It is supposed to get a reaction out of us, and you know what? It worked. It got a reaction out of us, but it didn't make me want to keep on watching. I also really didn't like how this series was paced. It felt super slow, and some of the chapters actually felt like filler for some reason. It's just to make the series a lot longer. And while I did enjoy the Ando arc, I just wanted the series to be over with already. Was the series worth the 5-month wait? I personally don't think so. Now, just letting you know, I'm going to be skipping 2 arcs in this series and just give like brief summaries of them, only because it would make a majority of this video basically filler, and I don't want to do that to you guys. But if you do want to go ahead and read it, then I say go ahead. But just saying, the 2 arcs don't have any impact on the actual story until like the very end of the chapter. So here's my short little summary of those 2 arcs. After killing Ando, Uruma and the rest of Juujika return home to rest, even bringing in Hanaoka into the group. Reo chose not to join them, deciding to just mourn her sister's death instead, but tells Uruma to move in with her once things are settled. As Hanaoka and Kawana argue over Yuruma's affection, Kitami scrolls through social media and then sees countless people begging for Juujika's help. Meanwhile, Nakamura, one of the island leaders from the previous arc, is captured by Shigoku and Momoki, who lobotomize him and then turn him into a mindless cat. Soon after, a runaway girl named Rika arrives at Juujika headquarters begging for help. She tells them about Mumu Street, a place for homeless people and kids who have run away from home, where she was taken in by a man called the King. At first he seemed kind, but she was quickly enslaved and forced to wear a collar and then treated like a dog. The King beat her and the other girls daily, making them act like dogs to live. One of them, Hiroko, constantly took the punishment to protect Rika. After enduring endless abuse, Rika finally contacted Juujika, asking them to save Haruko and kill the King. Uruma and Kitami rescue the girls and then capture the King. In the woods, they lock him in a cage and infect him with a rare flesh-eating parasite. The parasite begins eating at his flesh, and he hallucinates the girls that he abused as grotesque dog-like monsters. With the King dead, Juujika celebrates alongside Rika and Hiroko, while detectives Asako and Mizuki investigate his disappearance but find no proof of Juujika's involvement. Kitami asks Uruma what happened to Ando's phone, and Uruma explains that when he tried to open up the phone, all of the data was wiped. So now they're back at square one. Later, a young boy named Naoki arrives for help. He says that he's being bullied by a classmate named Nagumo, who threatened to kill his little sister. Uruma takes on the case, seeing his younger self in the boy. When Naoki confronts Nagumo, Uruma is shocked to learn that his bully is actually a girl. The situation turned out to be a big misunderstanding, as Nagumo actually just has a crush on Naoki, and that Naoki only mentioned his sister to make her jealous. The arc ends on a light-hearted note with Uruma and the girls drinking while Kitami sulks alone at headquarters. However, suddenly, a phone rings, and it's not Kitami's, but Ando's. And again, honestly, these 2 arcs are just filler. It's not even hiding it. It doesn't connect to anything of the series, and again, it's literally just filler. I know I said in the last video that some of the chapters feel like filler, but honestly, looking back, you can make a strong case that this was just building character, giving us time to learn and get connected with Kitami and Kawana, but these 2 arcs, again, didn't include any of that. I did like the hallucination part, and I'm not gonna lie, the Naoki arc was pretty short, but also pretty funny. But again, reading it midway, I was just dying for them to just hurry up and to just get on to one of the revolutionary leaders. But now that the filler is gone, we can now finally get back to the actual story. Kitami answers the phone, and the person on the other end says, "It's been a while." After a night of partying, Uruma and Chizuru go out to a park to talk. Chizuru starts to ask Uruma if they could become something more, but before she can finish, Uruma interrupts, saying that he can't be in a relationship with her and that he's sorry. Chizuru quietly kisses him, then gets up to leave, but Uruma hugs her from behind and apologizes once more. We cut back to Kitami, who's still on the phone with the mysterious caller. The voice continues, "Seems like you finally managed to kill Ando. You seem to be doing well, Yuruman." Kitami says that he has the wrong person, but then the man hangs up. The next day, Kitami tells Uruma about the call and mentions the man, referring to him as Yuruman. The name triggers something in Yuruma's mind. Suddenly, a client walks in, a young woman who looks exactly like Kaname. Uruma instinctively calls out her name, shocking her. She explains that her name is Matsushima Kaname, not Shirakawa Kaname. Uruma apologizes, saying that she just resembled someone that he used to know. It's clear that she's only a look-alike. Shirakawa Kaname died 5 years ago. Matsushima explains that her boyfriend has been frightening her lately. He used to be so kind, but recently he's become more aggressive, telling her what to wear and humiliating her in public. She doesn't have any photos of him because they were all deleted. Uruma tells her that this isn't really the kind of case Juujika handles. But then suddenly, Ando's phone rings. Uruma excuses himself to answer it and then agrees to meet the caller, who turns out to be Jun Shirakawa. Jun greets Uruma in a friendly tone, but Uruma gets straight to the point, demanding to know why Jun has Ando's phone number and whether or not he's a part of the Revolutionary Club. Jun reminds him that 5 years ago, the Revolutionary Club were the ones who killed Kaname. Since then, he's been hunting them down and managed to obtain Ando's contact information during a search. He warns Uruma that his own actions have attracted the club's attention, then asks him to join forces in tracking them down. In the middle of their conversation, Uruma suddenly experiences a strange flash, an image of someone pointing a gun at him, though their face is completely hidden. Jun receives a phone notification revealing that his wallpaper is a collage of photos of Kaname. Back at the office, Kitami and Kawana decline Matsushima's request, suggesting that she should just try to talk things out with her boyfriend. Kawana even recommends she speaks with her parents, particularly her mother, but Matsushima reacts strangely to the mention of her mother, before quickly returning to normal and then leaving. Meanwhile, Jun explains to Uruma that the person who kidnapped Kaname, Momoki, is the head educator of the club responsible for training new soldiers. He located her hideout and says that in 2 weeks, reinforcements will arrive at the club main base. That's when he wants Uruma to infiltrate and eliminate her. Uruma asks for time to think it over, and Jun gives him his phone number, telling him to call if he changes his mind. Before leaving, Jun adds that Kaname really liked him. We then go back to Matsushima's house. She's talking to her mother, but the camera slowly reveals that there's actually no one in the room. Her father then walks in and casually asks his wife to pour him a beer, then pretends to drink from an empty glass. Matsushima calls for her younger brother, Jun, and then a small boy comes running down the stairs. The family sits down to eat dinner, chatting cheerfully. Then they all turn around towards an empty chair and ask how mom's day was. After a moment of silence, they all start bursting into laughter, continuing their conversation as the camera pans to a door with bloodstains and a weird liquid sleeping out from underneath. Back at the office, Kitami checks Matsushima's old Instagram photos and notices that she looks completely different from before. Her appearance has drastically changed. That night, Uruma tells Kitami and Kawana everything that happened with Jun, and they fill him in on Matsushima. Uruma doesn't believe Jun's story, suspecting that it's all a setup, since on the night Uruma was arrested, the club escorted Jun out of the school. To be sure, Uruma placed a tracker on Jun, planning to monitor his entire movements for the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Asako and Mizuki continue their investigation. Mizuki gives Asako files on missing people from the past 2 years, suggesting that Juujika's victims might be among them. As Asako flips through the documents, she begins to recognize several familiar faces. 3 days later, Juujika realizes that Jun has discovered their tracker. It's been constantly moving until it suddenly stops in one specific location. Uruma decided to investigate. When he arrives, he discovers that the tracker has stopped in front of Matsushima's house. Uruma rings the doorbell, and Matsushima's father answers. Uruma explains that he's there to finish an assignment with Matsushima and asks where she is. The father lets him in, saying that Matsushima is with her master. We then cut to Matsushima naked in a room with Jun, laying in bed as he crushes the tracker that Uruma gave him. Back with Asako, she examines another file. A missing person named Shitano Kaname, a 30-year-old woman who disappeared 2 years ago after attending a revolutionary club seminar. She looks very identical to Shirakawa Kaname. Inside the house, Uruma notices an odd odor, but tries to ignore it. He hears Matsushima's father speaking to his wife, even though no one seems to be there. A young boy named Jun enters the room, and his father tells him to be polite to their guest. But the boy looks terrified. When the father steps into the kitchen, Jun mouths the word, "Help." Uruma immediately reacts, but the father reappears behind him. Uruma pushes him away and asks the boy what's wrong. The boy then bursts into tears, shouting for his mom, but the father yells that they all revolutionize together. The boy points upstairs and then cries out that his mom is in the room at the far end of the second floor. Uruma rushes up the stairs as the boy screams that he's not Jun. Uruma opens the door to find a woman's body inside. The rope around her neck has snapped. The father explains that everything began when his wife joined the club and then dragged the entire family into it. Eventually, she couldn't return to who she was, so she took her own life. He says he couldn't move the body because he didn't want Master Jun to find out. The police arrive and take both the father and the boy into questioning. Later, Uruma meets Jun and confronts him, pinning him to the wall and demanding answers. Jun admits that he is a part of the revolutionary club, but insists that he's infiltrating them to avenge his sister. He joined their medical division and eventually became the head of health affairs. He explains that Matsushima suffered severe facial burns in the past, and through the club's medical experiments, they used DNA from the original Kaname to restore her appearance, making her look identical to Jun's sister. Matsushima confirms everything, explaining that she didn't know how to fix her family's problems and couldn't stop her father from losing his mind. She feels guilty for ignoring the truth about her mother's death and decides to leave. Before going, Jun asks once again if Uruma would help him in the killing Momoki. Uruma doesn't answer. Jun and Matsushima leave together while Uruma stands there, unsure of what to believe anymore. We then cut to Momoki, who laughs after hearing the news. She calls Shigoku, who replies, "So Jun is finally starting to get serious." Uruma tells Kitami and Kawana everything, and despite their concerns, he decides to take the mission on alone, even if it is a trap. Meanwhile, Asako tells Mizuki that all the missing people resemble Kaname Shirakawa, and some even share similar names, like one case involving a Kaname Shinona. Every one of the victims had joined the revolutionary club before disappearing. Asako concludes that the leader of the club is none other than Shigoku, one of Uruma's former bullies. She also learns that the Shinoda case is connected to a club facility in Mount Notomi, the same place that Uruma plans to infiltrate. Both parties set their plans for Christmas Eve, just 7 days away. That night, we see Chizuru out with a friend in the city when Jun suddenly appears right behind her, inviting her to dinner. During their meal, he casually mentions that he's recently spoken with Uruma, then asks Chizuru if she's still in love with him. Moments later, everyone in the restaurant stands up simultaneously. Jun smiles and tells Chizuru that he'll let her meet him. His men then knock her out unconscious and then carry her away. The day finally comes, and the Juujika group drives towards Mount Notomi. As they make their way down the mountain road, Kitami starts to feel uneasy. Something about the area just seems strangely familiar. Eventually, he stops the car in the middle of the forest and then tells Uruma where to go meet Jun. Uruma and Jun reunite, and Jun explains that they have to reach the Revolutionary Club base by crossing an abandoned bridge nearby to enter through the back. The two then begin walking across the bridge when Jun suddenly tells Uruma to stop and stand where he is. Jun continues to walk forward, and then he turns directly towards him. At that moment is when Kitami realizes why the mountain looks so familiar. This is the same place where he first met Uruma years ago. On the bridge, Jun suddenly pulls out a gun and points it at Uruma. He asks, "You really don't remember, do you?" Uruma suddenly experiences vivid flashbacks back to his time in prison and one stormy night when he saw Shigoku getting into a car. Just as he was about to catch up, Jun approached and shot him in the ribs, then threw him off the bridge into the water below. Now in the present, Jun shoots Uruma again. Uruma collapses to the ground, his vision blurring. The last thing he sees before blacking out are several figures resembling Kaname surrounding him. When Uruma regains consciousness, he finds himself tied up next to Asako and Mizuki already bound nearby. Uruma asks how they were captured. Asako explains that they weren't allowed in through the main entrance, so they tried to sneak in through the back. While inside the base, Mizuki had found a disfigured woman covered in surgical scars. As she tried to help, both her and Asako were ambushed by Jun's men and then taken captive. In the present, a voice echoes through the dark room. It's a monologue being played over loudspeakers. As the lights come up, they realize that they're sitting inside a theater. The words being spoken are from the prologue of Romeo and Juliet. The curtains open, and the performance begins. The same play that once appeared during their high school festival. The show starts with a puppet reenactment of Jun and Kaname's relationship. Then a new character, a villain named Uruma, appears. The story depicts Kaname falling in love with Uruma, but Jun, realizing that Uruma is a devil, chased him away. The next act transitions to live actors who look exactly like Kaname and Uruma. The play restages their high school festival performance of Romeo and Juliet. However, it twists the event to make it look like Uruma was manipulating Kaname. The performance even recreates the moment when Uruma and Kaname were alone together at the Love Hotel, however distorting it to portray that Uruma was actually assaulting her. Asako starts to believe what she's seeing until Yarama yells at Jun, insisting that none of it is true and that it's all a lie. In the final scene, the play ends with actors portraying Uruma and Kaname taking their own lives together. Jun steps onto the stage, declaring Uruma is responsible for Kaname's death. Uruma screams for Jun to wake up, telling him that Shigoku and Momoki have been manipulating him from the very beginning. But Jun is filled with resentment, explaining that even after becoming a leader within the Revolutionary Club, nothing filled that emptiness in his heart except Kaname. So, he says he began recreating her, kidnapping women who resembled Kaname and using surgery and conditioning to turn them into alternate versions of her. As he speaks, dozens of Kaname lookalikes appear, each dressed differently, representing the many possible futures of the Kaname that he lost. Jun admits that the story about facial burns was all a lie. None of these women were injured. He had simply performed surgeries to make them look identical to Kaname, then brainwashed each one to believe in a different, fabricated identity. Asako warns Jun that involving this many victims and involving them would just make him a major target for law enforcement. But Jun laughs, telling her to go ahead and try to go after him. He says he doesn't care how his plan ends, he just wants Uruma to feel the same despair he once did. Then suddenly, two of the Kanames then drag someone on stage. It's Chizuru, dressed in the same costume Kaname wore during the school play. The Kanames force her to the ground as Jun steps towards her. Uruma shouts for him to stop, but he's powerless to intervene. Jun then begins to take off his clothes and then violate Chizuru as Uruma just spazzes out, trying to get out of his restraints. When it's over, he orders one of the Kanames to make her look like Kaname. The Kanames hold Chizuru down as the Kaname with the cleaver chops off her right arm. They then chop off her left leg as Uruma continues to spaz out. Chizuru tries to crawl towards Uruma, but then one of the Kanames chops off her head. Jun grabs the head of Chizuru and then places it on his lap, continuing to taunt Uruma as he just stares off. Jun then walks off stage and then orders the Kanames to kill Uruma. Just as they raise their weapons, an explosion rocks the building, causing a blackout. Taking advantage of the chaos, Mizuki cuts through her restraints, freeing Asako and Uruma, and the three make a run for it as another explosion shakes the compound. Kitami and Kawana have launched an assault outside. By the way, I just want to note that Mizuki could have just cut her restraints this entire time. So that also means that she just let Chizuru get not only violated, but also murdered, and she just decided not to intervene. Uruma, Asako, and Mizuki hide in another room. Mizuki tries to speak to Uruma, but he gives her a blank stare before suddenly knocking her unconscious. When Asako reacts in shock, he knocks her out too, and gently places them both inside lockers, apologizing and saying that he has to do this alone. Uruma sets off through the hallways, muttering that he needs to kill Jun. As he moves through the corridors, he cuts down countless club members one after another, driven purely by rage. However, elsewhere, someone watches him through security cameras, and is revealed that Chizuru is actually alive. The person killed earlier wasn't her, but a clone created through the same plastic surgery process. We then flash back to the night Jun kidnapped Chizuru. He had ordered his men not to harm her, explaining that she was innocent. Instead, he told her everything about Yunuma's past, his pain, his loss, and his obsession with revenge. And back in the present, Jun enters the room where Chizuru is being held. He asks if she enjoyed the show. Chizuru tells him that what he's doing makes him no different from Yunuma, that he should understand Yunuma's pain, having lost his own sister just as Yunuma lost his family. She says both Yunuma and Kaname care deeply for each other and that it was mutual. Jun was the one who destroyed that bond. Jun denies it, claiming that Yunuma was the one who got Kaname killed because of his obsession with revenge. Chizuru challenges him, asking why he didn't just kill her instead if he truly wanted to hurt Yunuma. She knows deep down that Jun still has a kind heart and doesn't actually want Yunuma to suffer like he claims. Jun says that it's too late for kindness now. All that's left is to wait for Yunuma to arrive. Moments later, Yunuma bursts through the door, finding Jun sitting on the bed surrounded by rows of Kaname clones. As Yunuma steps forward, Jun smirks and gives an order for every step that Yunuma takes, one of the Kanames must end their own life. Yunuma freezes in shock as Jun toys with him, fully aware of how to exploit his weakness. Yunuma screams that the real Kaname would have never wanted this. And when Jun hesitates for a brief second, Yunuma lunges forward, tackling him to the ground, holding a knife to his throat. Chizuru then rushes in, begging Yunuma not to kill him, explaining that the woman who died earlier wasn't truly her, but a clone. Before Yunuma could respond, Jun punches him in the face and then pins him down, yelling at Chizuru to just shut her mouth. Jun admits that his plan was to make Yunuma suffer in despair even longer, but now, change of plans. He pulls out his gun and points it directly at Yunuma's head. However, as Jun's about to pull the trigger, his hand starts to tremble. He can't do it. His head begins to pound, and the memories of his time with Kaname and Yunuma flood back. He turns, and he sees Kaname standing right in front of him. Jun finally understands everything. He lowers the gun slightly, and then he turns it on himself and pulls the trigger. Chizuru screams as Jun collapses. However, Yunuma begins striking Jun's lifeless body. Enraged that after destroying so many lives, Jun decides to take the easy way out by ending his own life. Chizuru cries and begs him to just stop as Mizuku and Asako arrive. The four of them silently leave the room. Behind them, the rows of Kaname clones all take their own lives. Kitami and Kawana see police cars entering the base and then arrest the remaining goons inside. Mizuki confronts Yunuma, explaining that Shigoku is the leader of the Revolutionary Club and was once one of Yunuma's bullies. Yunuma denies it, saying that he was never bullied, even though there's literal case files on it, but okay, whatever. We then get a flashback of Mizuki talking to Anzai about Yunuma. Anzai admits that he has some suspicion around the entire Yunuma incident, that maybe Yunuma is targeting his past bullies, but he adds that they still need to ask themselves who the real villains are. Back in the present, a police officer enters and then tells the group that they found the 13 dead Kanames. However, there was no sign of Jun's body. We then see Nakamura carrying Jun's corpse over to Momoki, who says that Jun still has something else to do. Asako asks Yunuma if he's still fighting some kind of battle, but before he can answer, Mizuki interrupts and then tells her that they're heading out. Even though Anzai's suspicion might be right, Mizuki says that she can't bring herself to forgive Yunuma. We then cut to Shigoku looming over Jun's corpse, when suddenly, someone walks over to him. Shigoku says that he should also do some acting, as he has something big planned for Jun. 3 days later, news of what happened at Mount Notomi spread across Japan. Kitami shows Yunuma and Kawana something shocking. The police have arrested the suspect of the Mount Notomi incident, Jun Shirakawa, as footage shows Jun sitting in the back of a police car. The news reports state that Jun gathered supporters from the Revolutionary Club and abused his power to manipulate them into committing crimes. In response to the report, Shigoku, the leader of the club, held a press conference. He offers his condolences to all of the victims and then claims that Jun had no connection to the official Revolutionary Club, saying that for Jun to commit crimes under the club's name breaks his heart. At the police department, Mizuki is ordered to drop the investigation into the Revolutionary Club. Asako is obviously pissed about this, but Mizuki tells her that she knows of one club base where they could find evidence, and then hopefully leak it to the press. They drive over to the location of the base, but when they arrive, the entire facility is gone. It completely disappeared. Uruma doesn't care what Shigoku says publicly. He vows to destroy Shigoku and the rest of the Revolutionary Club. Suddenly, a new client walks into the Juujika headquarters. Matsushima Kaname. The brainwashing done on her has begun to wear off, and she starts remembering most of what happened. She explains that she attended a club seminar with her mother where Jun first approached her and then placed her in a boot camp. Jun put her through an intense program designed to turn her into Kaname the girlfriend. She was trained to study and behave exactly like Jun's Kaname, but as his lover. Jun would constantly test her on her reactions, her way of speaking, and her mannerisms, and if she got anything wrong, she'd be shocked as punishment. After a while, Matsushima learned all of the language and behaviors that Jun wanted, and it was time for her to undergo plastic surgery. Matsushima breaks down crying, saying that her face isn't even her real one anymore. Uruma tells her that he can reverse the surgery and return her face back to normal, but they can't really avenge what Jun did since he's already dead. However, Matsushima tells him that it wasn't Jun who performed the surgery. It was Momoki. The arc ends with Matsushima pleading with them to kill Momoki. Uruma has only 2 more people left to kill, Momoki and Shigoku, but he doesn't know how to find them. Kawana explains that Momoki's identity is shrouded in mystery. They know almost nothing about her except that she's the oldest member of the group, a biologist, and a lesbian. Kawana suspects that if Momoki had a girlfriend, she would most likely bring her to the Revolutionary Club hideout, where Shigoku would probably be present as well. Kaname says that she doesn't know where the hideout is because she was blindfolded when she was taken there. However, she remembers that the car ride lasted around an hour and a half, and she heard a school bell while she was there. Using this information, Kitami pinpoints every school within a 40-kilometer radius. Even though that still leaves far too many possibilities, Uruma suddenly notices that his old elementary school is one of the marked locations. Uruma decides to go there and finally put an end to his revenge. Before leaving though, he goes to talk to Chizuru. He confirms everything about the Kaname situation and then tells her that he cannot continue their relationship. He says he has gone too far down this path and can never achieve happiness. So, he asks her to forget about him. As he turns to leave, Chizuru grabs Uruma's hand with tears in her eyes, but he lets her go and continues walking away. Meanwhile, Shigoku is at the elementary school reflecting on his motives. He explains that he always wanted to become a murderer without a motive. To achieve this, he started a project where he tried to manipulate his experiments into ending their own lives, committing indirect murder. However, when Uruma began to fight back, Shigoku felt that this experiment had finally become complete. Momoki then arrives and reveals that she sent her experiment Kaname over to Uruma. Shigoku also explains why he created the Revolutionary Club. He says he wanted love. In middle school, he killed his own parents because he believed their love was not good enough. The love he later received from the members of the club, however, felt like true love to him. Now that he has experienced what he considers real love, Shigoku believes he has finally become a murderer without a motive, and he says it is only a matter of time before he kills Uruma. Uruma and the group drive towards his hometown, and at the same time, Shigoku sends out an announcement to all the members of the Revolutionary Club, telling them to bloom during the spring. This message triggers chaos across the city. Revolutionary members begin slaughtering civilians while shouting, "Long live the revolution." People like Reo, Mizuki, and Asako are seen helping citizens who are being attacked. Uruma and his group watch the chaos unfold on the news, and as they drive through the town, Uruma begins to notice something strange. He tells Kitami to stop at a convenience store, but it is deserted as well. Uruma realizes that the entire town is empty. Suddenly, Kitami receives a message from Shigoku welcoming Uruma back home. At that moment, they notice an army of people watching them from the forest. A siren blasts throughout the town as Shigoku greets them, and the townspeople begin to emerge. It turns out that every single resident of the town is a member of the Revolutionary Club, effectively turning the town into a revolutionary city. Suddenly, a car falls from the sky with people inside it. Kitami rushes over to try to help him, but the car suddenly bursts into flames. Shigoku tells Uruma that the scene should look familiar, because it is exactly how Uruma's family died. Uruma vows to make Shigoku suffer as the townspeople charge at the group. Shigoku and Momoki watch the chaos unfold from afar. Shigoku reveals that some of the people in the crowd are specifically seeking revenge against Uruma. Uruma and his group manage to escape and hide under a bridge. Kitami points out that they can't kill the townspeople because they're clearly being manipulated somehow. They still need to reach the school, but is an hour away on foot. Suddenly, some townspeople attack them again, and during the fight, Kitami is sliced while protecting Kawana. They defeat the attackers, but Kitami is too injured to walk such a distance. Kawana finds a nearby hospital and then tells the others that she will go inside alone to get medicine. While searching the hospital, Kawana begins blaming herself for the entire situation. Suddenly, several revolutionary members spot her and she runs away, eventually locking herself inside a hospital room. What she doesn't realize is that in that room is Gano, asking for consent. Gano was last seen in part 1. Gano has been trying to build up consent points with Kawana by attempting to be her friend. Kawana sees this as an opportunity and tells him that if he helps her out, she will be his friend. Gano interprets this as her giving him consent and immediately tries to rip her clothes off. Kawana pushes him away, which makes him incredibly aggravated. She runs out of the room and then texts Uruma, telling him to help her because there is a psycho who is obsessed with consent. Kawana hides in another room, but Gano eventually finds her. He pins her down and then rips her clothes off, preparing to use a tool on her. Just then, Uruma bursts into the room and then knees Gano in the face. Uruma squares up to fight and realizes that he remembers Gano from years ago. Gano charges at him and crashes Uruma through a wall. An alarm goes off and several revolutionary members arrive and begin throwing items at Uruma. Uruma grabs a biker helmet and Gano suddenly recognizes him as the mysterious biker who defeated him years earlier. Gano then begins screaming at Uruma, but then unexpectedly thanks him. Gano explains that after Uruma beat him, he reflected deeply on what true consent actually means. Because of that realization, he now wants to repay the favor. Meanwhile, Kitami and Kawana leave the building, and Uruma joins them as Gano begins beating up the other revolutionary members. Uruma and the group spend the night resting in the woods. At the same time, Shigoku is shown celebrating and laughing about the fact that Gano has turned against him. Elsewhere, Momoki removes all of her clothes and then enters a room where Hanaoka is chained up. Hanaoka is the woman that was stuck on the island with Uruma and Kawana. Momoki kisses Hanaoka and drugs her so that she can assault her. As Momoki continues assaulting her, she receives a message informing her that Uruma is going with that guy. Crime in the city has increased, and the police have discovered a town that hasn't reported any crimes at all. Mizuki and Asako notice that the town is Hashida, the place where Uruma and Shigoku grew up in. Because of this, Mizuki sends all the police officers towards Hashida town. At the same time, Reo is also seen walking into Hashida. The story then cuts to a flashback about a boy named Kibe, who is known as a killer with 10 confirmed kills. As Kibe grows up, he becomes an even more experienced killer. At just 15 years old, he joined the army during World War II. Kibe proves to be so skilled that he is recruited into the Kitayama Corps, the same military division that Uruma's grandfather served in. During the war, the two talk about what they would do after it ends. Uruma's grandfather says he plans to settle down and start a family, but Kibe insists that he can never go back to living a normal life. In the present day, Kibe is now an old man, and he declares that he's going to eradicate the entire Uruma bloodline. Meanwhile, Uruma and the group are traveling towards the woods when Kawana notices a finger lying on the ground. As they investigate further, they see more fingers scattered along the path, forming a trail that leads deeper into the forest. At the end of the trail, Kibe is waiting for them. Kibe is shown cutting off a man's fingers before throwing Gano's head towards Uruma. A group of men dressed in ninja-like clothing surround Uruma and the group. Kibe then reveals that he was once a colleague of Uruma's grandfather. Kibe explains that he holds a deep grudge against Uruma's grandfather. He hates him so much that he is currently chewing on his grandfather's bones so that he can digest them and then turn them into his own feces. One of the masked men attempts to attack Uruma, but Uruma kicks him away. The group then escapes by using a smokescreen. As they run through the woods, Uruma remembers that his grandfather had a storage room nearby. Kibe and his men chase after him, but Uruma activates a trap set by his grandfather. An iron fence net drops down and then traps Kibe's men, cutting them every time that they move. However, instead of rescuing them, Kibe simply murders his own men while preparing himself to enjoy devouring Uruma. Yunuma's grandfather had set up so many traps around the area as part of Yunuma's training. Eventually, the group reaches Yunuma's grandfather's storage room, but when they enter, they discover that it's completely empty. Kibe arrives shortly after, revealing that he knew that they would head to the storage room. His men begin shooting at Yunuma and the others. Yunuma and the group are now trapped inside the storage room, while one of Kiba's men tries to break in. As they desperately try to figure out how to escape, they notice that there is an underground path, but it is way too far from the other side to reach safely. At that moment, Kitami comes up with a genius plan. He steps outside and reveals to Kiba's men that he has explosives strapped to his body. Before anyone could react, Kitami presses the detonator. His body explodes, killing Kiba's men, but also sacrificing his own life. A flashback then shows Kawana asking Kitami how he would like to die. Kitami admits that he considers himself an empty person, that all of his emotions were just a facade, a way to make himself feel like a hero. However, when the opportunity finally came, he believed that sacrificing himself for Yunuma would be the best thing that he could do. In doing so, he could become just like Yunuma, the light that had always been shining deep within his heart. When Kawana asked him how he wanted to die, Kitami answered, "To die as a hero protecting everyone's lives." Back in the present, Yunuma and Kawana bury Kitami and mourn his death before continuing their journey. As Yunuma walks, he wonders why Kiba hates his grandfather so much. The story then cuts back to Kiba lying on the ground, remembering the past. After the war, Kiba approaches Yunuma's grandfather and suggests that they continue their violent lifestyle together in the underworld. However, Yunuma's grandfather refuses and tells Kiba that he should settle down as well. At that moment, a waitress named Eko appears, and Kiba immediately falls in love with her. One day, he approaches her and kisses her, and then the scene cuts to the two of them lying together in a field. However, Yunuma's grandfather suddenly appears behind Kiba and attacks him. He takes Eko with him and then disappears. And from that moment on, Kiba swears revenge against Yunuma's grandfather. Back in the present, Kiba attempts to launch a sneak attack on Yunuma and Kawana, but he misses. Kawana angrily fires her gun at Kiba, and Kiba begins shouting insults at Kawana, calling her Eko, and asking why she would even go with Yunuma. Yunuma and Kawana run into a nearby neighborhood and quickly form a plan to deal with him. Yunuma decides to distract Kiba and calls out to get his attention. He runs towards the neighborhood without realizing that his grandfather's house is very close by. Yunuma eventually enters his grandfather's old house and then hears Kiba approaching. Kiba slashes through the door and then comes face to face with Yunuma, who is holding a small knife. During the fight, Kiba reveals that Yunuma's grandfather stole Eko from him, and that this event ultimately led to Yunuma's birth. The fight continues with Kiba gaining the upper hand. At one point, he slashes Yunuma's eye, leaving him with a scar similar to the one that his grandfather had. Kiba moves in to stab Yunuma, but Yunuma catches the blade using his armpit and then snaps it in half. As Yunuma prepares to stab Kiba, Kiba suddenly pulls out a gun and then shoves it into Yunuma's mouth, pinning him to the ground. Then, a shotgun rings out. However, it's revealed that Yunuma used his grandfather's old hunting rifle, which was hidden under a table, to shoot Kiba in the neck. Kiba staggers backwards but still attempts to stab Yunuma, but Yunuma quickly reloads the rifle and then points it at him. With the help of his grandfather, Yunuma finally kills Kiba by shooting him in the chest. As Kiba lies bleeding on the ground, it is revealed that when Kiba first met Eko, she was already married to Yunuma's grandfather. Yunuma then walks outside to meet Kawana, who thanks him for avenging Kitami. Unbeknownst to them, Shigoku has been watching the entire fight. He mockingly comments that the next group seeking revenge will be even harder for Yunuma to kill. Meanwhile, the police have finally arrived at Hashira. However, an army of Revolutionary Club members are waiting for them at the entrance. The members immediately begin fighting the police and even fire a rocket launcher that destroys a police car. During the chaos, Mizuki is grazed by a bullet as the police are forced to retreat. Later that night, Yunuma and Kawana finally arrive at Yunuma's old school. Shigoku greets them and then welcomes them to the school. However, he warns Yunuma about his final revengers, explaining that the only difference this time is that they cannot kill Yunuma. Yunuma and Kawana walk into the school entrance and then see a group of middle-aged people whom Yunuma doesn't recognize. As they begin introducing themselves, Yunuma realizes that they are the families of the people he took revenge on. They explain that they will not fight him, instead, they are there to witness his downfall. The group begins spitting on Yunuma and shouting at him, accusing him of ruining their children's lives. Yuruma stands there silently and endures all of their verbal abuse. After they finish, he looks at them and calmly says, "Was that all you had to say?" He then turns around and walks away. Yuruma is willing to endure all of the verbal abuse that they throw at him, but nothing will ever stand in the way of his revenge. Yuruma and Kawana walk into the school and head to the second floor. There, Shigoku had set up a memorial exhibit dedicated to Yuruma. The display contains memorabilia of all of Yuruma's killings. Even though Yuruma chose this path himself, seeing everything laid out like that makes him feel sick, and he ends up throwing up. Waiting for them at the end of the hallway is Shigoku. Yuruma immediately charges forward to punch him, but he suddenly stops when Shigoku pulls out a photograph. The picture shows Yuruma and Shigoku as little kids posing together. The photo was taken during their 3rd year of elementary school, and it was taken at Yuruma's house. Shigoku then shows Yuruma several more pictures of the two of them hanging out, explaining that they used to be best friends. Yuruma refuses to believe anything like that, but Shigoku insists that they were truly best friends, and that Yuruma's memories have been fabricated. Yuruma still doesn't believe him, so Shigoku presents a VR machine that will supposedly show Yuruma what really happened in the past. Shigoku promises that he would not kill Yuruma, and that Kawana would not be harmed. Yuruma enters the machine and then puts on the VR headset. He is suddenly transported to his old elementary school while he was in 3rd grade. A student notices him, and a teacher begins trying to question him, so Yuruma runs away. As he wanders through the neighborhood, he wonders why Shigoku would even create a machine like this, and why the people around him are able to see him. Suddenly, his younger self appears. Kid Yuruma tries to run away but trips and falls. Yuruma tells him that he's lost and needs some help. Kid Yuruma says that he will help him, but only if Yuruma helps him with a problem that he is also dealing with. Yuruma agrees, and then they walk home together. When Yuruma arrives at the house, he notices that it looks exactly like his real home. Inside, he comes face to face with his deceased mother. She goes to get him some tea, and then Yuruma's little brother, Kakeru, appears. Seeing them causes Yuruma to burst into tears, and even though he knows that this isn't his real family, he still just can't help himself from crying. Yuruma spends some time with them and even makes a funny face to stop Kakeru from crying. Eventually, Kid Yuruma tells him that they need to leave. Yuruma says goodbye to his family and then prepares to go. As they leave, Kid Yuruma tells him that he needs help with something and then asks him to meet at the school at 6 p.m. While waiting, Yuruma decides to walk around the neighborhood some more. A soccer ball suddenly rolls up to him, and a group of kids approach him. They turn out to be the same bullies from his past, but instead of attacking them, they invite him to play soccer with them. Yuruma plays with them and then encounters his grandfather, who looks much younger than Yuruma has ever seen him before. Eventually, Yuruma leaves, and the kids ask him to play with them again sometime. Before leaving, Yuruma asks them about Shigoku, but they have no idea who that is. Later, Yuruma meets with Kid Yuruma at the school. Kid Yuruma shows him someone, his best friend, Shigoku. Shigoku and Kid Yuruma ask Yuruma to come with them because it involves the problem Kid Yuruma wanted help with. As they walk together, Yuruma still struggles to believe that he was ever friends with Shigoku. They arrive at the rabbit hatch at the school. Shigoku tells them to watch as he enters the enclosure. Kid Yuruma looks terrified as Shigoku grabs one of the rabbits and then begins strangling it. Kid Yuruma begs him to stop, but Shigoku says that he is doing it because of him. Yuruma begins to remember this moment as Shigoku slams the rabbit onto the ground. Kid Yuruma tells Yuruma that he needs help with Shigoku. He says everything is his fault because he once played the choking game with Shigoku. At that moment, Yuruma begins remembering everything. One day, Yuruma and Shigoku were walking home from school when they saw some kids choking another kid. They asked what was happening, but the boy who was being choked got up and explained that they were just playing the choking game. After the other kids left, Shigoku asked Yuruma to choke him as well. Yuruma refuses, but Shigoku threatened to stop being his friend if he didn't do it. Reluctantly, Yuruma agreed. Yuruma began strangling Shigoku, but Shigoku kept telling him to squeeze tighter and tighter. Eventually, Shigoku lost consciousness for a moment, and when he woke up, he had tears in his eyes. Shigoku said that during that moment, he saw death, and that was beautiful. From that point on, everything started to spiral out of control. Shigoku began killing small animals and even forced Yuruma to kill animals as well. It wasn't until the day of the rabbit habitat that Yuruma had finally had enough and decided to cut ties with him. For an entire year, Yuruma stopped hanging out with Shigoku, and the two of them grew distant. Then a year later, Shigoku returned with the 4 bullies. Together they began torturing Yuruma, and Shigoku would smile while watching, because to him, he was simply showing his best friend the beauty of death. Yunuma suddenly removes the VR headset and then breaks out of the machine. He now remembers that he and Shigoku really were best friends. Yunuma partly blames himself for everything that happened. However, Shigoku tells him that he didn't show him the truth to make him feel guilty. He had two reasons for doing it. First, he wanted to thank Yunuma for giving him his near-death experience. Second, he wanted Yunuma to become a shining star. Shigoku thought that Yunuma had been too bland. When Yunuma lost his memories of Shigoku, Shigoku decided to push him towards becoming something extraordinary. In the end, Yunuma became exactly that after Shigoku murdered his family. Yunuma declares that he will kill Shigoku. Instead of being afraid, Shigoku praises him. The two of them head upstairs where the final stage of their confrontation awaits. However, before the big battle begins, the story shifts to showing how Shigoku first met each of the bullies and what their first sins were. Each of their sins forms a cross. Senkoji's sin was breaking his mother's necklace. His mother had left him and his father a long time ago, and he developed a twisted enjoyment of breaking things that were precious to him thanks to Shigoku. Yoshiro's sin was watching his mother having sex. With Shigoku's influence, this eventually led him to becoming a sex addict. Madoka's sin was killing a friend. He believed that his friend had been making fun of him even though it was just harmless banter. However, Shigoku manipulated him into believing that it was malicious. Kuga's sin was that he originally didn't want to be a bully like his older brother. However, after he once helped out a weak child, he ended up becoming isolated by everyone else. Shigoku then manipulated him into becoming a bully as well. Shigoku's own first sin was speaking to a salaryman while knowing that the man is planning to end his own life, yet doing nothing to stop him. The first day Shigoku discovered the man's body was the same day that he actually met Uruma. And finally, Yuruma's first sin was befriending Shigoku. Together, these 6 people form the 6 crosses, which is the name of the series in English. 6 people on crosses. In the present, Shigoku gives Uruma several choices as the TVs behind him turn on. The screen shows 4 girls: Hanaoka, Mizuki, Asako, and Chizuru. Shigoku takes Uruma and Kawana to the school gym, where the members of the Revolutionary Club surround them. Shigoku turns on the lights, revealing that the 4 girls are handcuffed in front of them. He forces Kawana to stand next to the girls as he begins hosting a love-matching game for Uruma. It turns out that the girls came on their own free will. Hanaoka was offered a choice: either get branded herself or brand her crush, Uruma. Mizuki and Asako chose to participate in the game rather than have members of the Revolutionary Club take their own lives. Chizuru had been out to lunch with some friends, but when she returned from the bathroom, her friends were dead. A revolutionary member forced her to choose: either go with him and possibly sacrifice herself for Uruma, or refuse and have Uruma be killed. Shigoku makes the 5 girls stand on numbers from 1 through 5, officially beginning the game. For round 1, Uruma must choose one of the 5 girls to kill. If he refuses to choose, then all of them will die. However, before Uruma can even make a decision, the story flashes back to Mizuki's past and their journey towards becoming a police officer. Suddenly, Mizuki is crushed by a giant metal object. Even though Uruma never chose her, she happened to stand on the unlucky number. With Mizuki dead, the real first round begins. Asako is devastated by Mizuki's death, but she notices Uruma crying over it. Uruma apologizes for getting Mizuki and Anzai involved in his revenge. Even though Mizuki would never forgive him, Asako accepts his apology and tells him to kill the true evil, Shigoku. Uruma is given 10 minutes to choose someone to die, but instead, he charges forward and tries to punch Shigoku. A glass barrier protects him though, stopping Uruma. Uruma keeps punching the glass until Shigoku reveals 5 torture devices meant for the girls. The devices resemble the same ones that Uruma used to kill his former bullies. 3 minutes remain and Uruma still can't choose. Suddenly, Hanaoka exposes her chest and begins to beg Uruma to not pick her. Meanwhile, Chizuru and Asako tell Uruma to just choose them instead. Uruma is completely conflicted. And then, the timer runs out, and he still hasn't chosen anyone. A screen table appears with arrows pointing towards the girls. The arrows slowly begin moving, and whichever girl the arrow reaches will be chosen to die. Although the arrow appears to be heading towards Asako, it ultimately lands on Hanaoka. A large man drags Hanaoka onto the stage for her execution. She attempts to seduce him to escape, but the man simply breaks her hand. Shigoku allows Hanaoka to choose which device she wants to die by. She chooses the blood transfusion device, believing that it will be the least painful. However, the device begins extracting so much blood that it gradually erases her senses before eventually destroying her respiratory system. Hanoaka screams in agony until she no longer can, dying completely drained of blood. The crowd erupts in cheers, and Uruma desperately tries to trade his own life in exchange for the girls' lives, but Shigoku refuses, saying that it would be too boring. Uruma then charges at the glass again, but Momoki shoots him in the leg. Shigoku begins round 2 as the arrows start moving again. We then see a flashback to Kawana's past, her childhood, the abuse that she suffered from the orphanage director, and how Kitami saved her from that man and helped form Juujika. The arrow begins approaching Kawana, but at the last moment, it redirects towards Chizuru. Chizuru calmly walks towards the stage as Uruma desperately tries to stop her, but the large man restrains him. Chizuru chooses the poison that was created by Momoki, the same poison used on the failed Kaname clones. Meanwhile, Reo is shown wandering through the school building and eventually reaching Momoki's room. Inside, she discovers a mummified baby corpse lying on a bed, along with a photo frame showing Momoki with the child. Back in the gym, 2 men restrain Chizuru and inject her with the poison. Her eyes begin bleeding as she gradually goes blind. Momoki explains that the poison causes random symptoms, but eventually, the victim will lose all their senses until their heart stops. Chizuru's arms and legs begin to bleed as she collapses to the ground. Chizuru begins to cry, telling Uruma that she was simply happy to have met him. She vomits blood as the large man finally allows Uruma to run to her. Uruma calls out to Chizuru, but she can no longer hear him. Her final words are simply, "I love you." Uruma screams in grief, and at that moment, Reo suddenly enters the gym. Shigoku begins round 3 as the arrows start moving again. Before the arrow can select someone, Reo calls out to Momoki and reveals the mummified baby that she discovered. Momoki panics and then begs Reo to let go of her precious child. Reo throws the child into the air, and Momoki immediately drops her gun and rushes forwards to catch it. Using the distraction, Reo grabs Uruma and the 2 remaining girls and then helps them escape. One of the revolutionary members catches the baby and then reassures Momoki that it's safe. However, Shigoku suddenly shoots both the baby and the man's arms off. Momoki breaks down in horror. Shigoku then points his gun at Uruma, but Momoki suddenly charges forward and then begins making out with Shigoku, allowing Uruma and the others to escape. Shigoku slaps Momoki away and then angrily tells her that he shouldn't have given her that baby. The story then reveals Momoki's origins. She had been abused by her parents for being a lesbian. However, after meeting Shigoku and joining the Revolutionary Club, she gained the confidence to murder her parents. Momoki felt that she could love anyone that she wanted, and she chose to love Shigoku. The 2 of them have sex in front of her parents' corpse, and although Momoki later gave birth to their child, Shigoku never showed either her or the baby any attention. Because of that, Momoki also began neglecting the child. After 3 months of neglect, Shigoku finally visited them, but by that point, the baby had already starved to death. Unironically, Shigoku now loved the child because it was dead, and Momoki felt the same way. In the present, Shigoku calmly waits for Uruma, knowing that he would eventually return. Uruma is taken to a nearby house in the neighborhood, completely overwhelmed with guilt over the deaths of Chizuru and the others. Despite this, he still knows that he must finish his revenge against Shigoku. Uruma tries to leave, but Asako tells him that they should let the police handle Shigoku instead. Uruma refuses. After everything that had happened, he just can't allow that. Looking into Uruma's eyes and understanding his resolve, Asako finally lets him go. We then see Asako meeting with the police and coordinating an assault against the Revolutionary Club. Meanwhile, Uruma, Kawana, and Reo make their way back towards the school. Inside the building, Uruma kills the large man before breaking into the gym. There, Uruma finally comes face to face with Shigoku once again, beginning the final fight of the series. Shigoku and Uruma finally come face to face. Shigoku thanks Uruma for giving him such an incredible near-death experience, explaining that everything that they have done up to this point has been for Shigoku to witness the beauty of death. Shigoku vows to kill Uruma, saying that everything is thanks to him. Uruma, on the other hand, vows to make Shigoku suffer. Shigoku approaches Uruma and punches him in the face. Uruma is stunned but then quickly tries to throw a punch of his own, only for Shigoku to catch it. The 2 of them headbutt each other as a siren begins ringing throughout the town. Meanwhile, Asako sees the town slowly filling up with a gas that causes people to bleed from their eyes and mouths. Shigoku explains that the poison gas will soon cover the entire town and kill everyone, and that Momoki is the only one controlling the gas. Shigoku tells them that they can try to reach the broadcasting room to stop it, but warns that in just a few minutes, the entire town will be dead. Kaona and Reo rush towards the broadcasting room while Shigoku reveals an underground hatch where he and Yuruma will have their final fight. Shigoku and Yuruma walk through the underground tunnel where Shigoku had previously conducted all of his experiments. They eventually enter a room filled with the skulls of Shigoku's victims. Shigoku begins whipping Yuruma with a special whip that has metal tips. He continues striking him until the whip wraps around Yuruma's leg, which allows Yuruma to remove the shotgun pellet stuck in his leg, letting him move faster. Meanwhile, Asako is seen helping citizens and police escape the spreading gas as Reo and Kawana finally reach the broadcasting room. Reo defeats all of the guards and successfully stops the poison gas. However, they notice that Momoki is nowhere to be seen. Back on the ground, Shigoku continues swinging the whip, but Yuruma manages to break Shigoku's arm. Shigoku retaliates by biting off several of Yuruma's fingers. Shigoku then breaks his arm back into place while Yuruma tells him how much he hates him. Surprisingly, Shigoku becomes emotional and begins to tear up. He realizes that what Yuruma feels towards him is genuine hatred. Shigoku doesn't understand why he's crying but believes it's because Yuruma truly hates him. Shigoku admits that he has never felt this kind of connection with someone before. Still, he prepares to end everything by pulling out a pistol and attempting to shoot Yuruma. Yuruma quickly uses the whip to knock the gun out of Shigoku's hand, and Yuruma grabs the weapon, shoots Shigoku in the leg, and then declares that he's ready to make Shigoku experience the suffering that he caused. Yuruma knows that Shigoku has wanted to die this entire time, and he begins describing how he plans to torture him, which only excites Shigoku even more. Yuruma raises the gun to shoot him, but suddenly, Momoki rushes in and takes the bullet for Shigoku. Shigoku laughs at the sight of Yuruma accidentally shooting Momoki, but Yuruma once again points the gun towards him. Suddenly, Momoki stabs Yuruma in the leg with a syringe and injects him with the same poison that killed Chizuru. As Momoki dies, Yuruma begins bleeding from his nose. Yuruma starts crying as he remembers his grandfather once telling him that the death of a murderer will never be a pleasant one. Shigoku mocks him, but Yuruma suddenly punches him with incredible force, sending Shigoku flying. Yuruma continues beating Shigoku relentlessly, but Shigoku simply smiles the entire time. At one point, Shigoku even tears out his own eyeball so it won't distract Yuruma during the fight. Yuruma can't understand how Shigoku can still smile after that beating. It is then revealed that ever since he was born, Shigoku has been unable to feel pain. That's why the moment when Yuruma nearly killed him years ago was so special to him, because it was the first time he had ever truly encountered death. Yuruma begins coughing up blood as the poison spreads throughout his body, while Shigoku continues mocking him for failing to get the revenge that he wanted. Suddenly, Yuruma apologizes to Shigoku for being the one who created the monster that he became. Shigoku doesn't understand what he means. However, when one of Yuruma's tears falls onto Shigoku's face, Shigoku suddenly experiences pain for the very first time in his life. Taking advantage of the moment, Yuruma unleashes a brutal series of punches that completely devastates Shigoku, leaving him barely recognizable. Yuruma then ties Shigoku up using the whip and then begins burning every piece of his body, recreating the same burns that Yuruma's brother suffered. Now burned and barely alive, Shigoku still claims that he regrets nothing. Yuruma climbs on top of him and finally ends Shigoku's life by strangling him the same way Shigoku once choked him earlier in the story. Yuruma kills him, and Shigoku's final words were simply, "I'm sorry." We then see a flashback of Shigoku and Yuruma playing together as children while Yuruma narrates, "They're called apologies. They help cleanse your heart, but in our case, we're both irredeemable." Yuruma stands up and stumbles through the school. He can no longer see or hear, and knowing that he will die soon, he enters a room and collapses onto the floor. He apologizes to everyone that he has killed, including Chizuru. Yuruma says that he knows that he cannot go to the same place Chizuru went, but he is still grateful that he was given such a privileged death. Yuruma closes his eyes, and he suddenly finds himself standing in front of June. Kitami is standing behind him, and in the distance, his grandfather can also be seen. Yuruma officially dies while holding Chizuru's corpse. Later, Asako and the police discover Yuruma's body and thank him for killing Shigoku. The war has finally ended. In total, 52 people died during the battle, and there is no public mention of Yuruma or what he did. Asako continues working as a police officer, while Kawana and Reo spend their time at Kitami's clinic. we then see a faceless figure wandering through the places connected to Yuruma's life, including the school, his grandfather's house, the playground, and even Chizuru's grave. The final place the figure visits is Kitami's clinic, where it is revealed that the figure is actually Yuruma's spirit. The series ends with Kawana and Reo taking up the mantle of Juujika, while Yuruma's spirit watches over them. But it is also revealed that Yuruma now wanders alongside Shigoku and the former bullies. And that is the end of Juujika no Rokunin. The series is such a huge up and down battle throughout the entire thing. It has really good positives like the characters, the overall concept of Yuruma wanting revenge on his bullies and Shigoku, and of course the gore and just creative ways that the series showcases his kills. However, the series is incredibly long, too long for a series like Juujika no Rokunin. I think the series went downhill as soon as they started introducing the new 5 main villains. If they could just skip the Amnesia arc, skip the island, skip Jun and Kanami's arc, and just go straight to the Hashira arc, it could have been a pretty solid and full-fledged series. It definitely feels like the mangaka was either forced to continue the series or just didn't want to end it, because it could have been a solid 100-something chapters and just be over with, which makes some of the arcs feel like it's dragging, and sometimes it even feels like it's filler. Another huge issue was like the large amount of shock value and sexual abuse. I will say around the ending of the series it does die down a bit on the shock value and sexual abuse, but it really was crazy when it came to the beginning of the series. But honestly, other than that, I do feel like the series did good with the ending. The final battle was really fun, and even the deaths of some of the characters felt needed, except for Hanoka. She was really done dirty in this. But honestly, I don't know how to feel about Shigoku and Yuruma needing more history between each other. I think Shigoku just being evil to be evil is honestly the best route. Also, the stuff with the gas was pretty unnecessary, and it was also paced really slow. Like, I felt super bad for the people that had to read this weekly or bi-weekly. I don't even know the time frames of how the chapters came out. Overall, I wouldn't say that it was my favorite series, probably not even like my top 10 of the series that I've covered on this channel, but I would be lying if I didn't find some parts enjoyable. Definitely a fun and entertaining series at times. But man, was it a real drag to get through this entire series, to the point where I actually almost stopped covering the series twice. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. If you want to support the channel, then check out the Patreon, YouTube memberships, and the Discord on the description below. And if you want more horror videos like this one, then why not scroll down and hit that subscribe button. But I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.